Sixth grade Interim 1. Read the passage and answer the questions that follow. Then write a response to the writing prompt. Excerpt from Shane by Jack Schaefer. This is an excerpt from the Western novel Shane Begins. The narrator has been watching a stranger on horseback approaching on the road to his family's ranch. The stranger took it all in, sitting there easily in the saddle. I saw his eyes slow on the flowers Mother had planted by the porch steps, then come to a rest on our shiny new pump and our trowel beside it. They shifted back to me, and again, without knowing why. I felt that sudden chill, but his voice was gentle when he spoke like a man schooled in patience. I'd appreciate a chance at the pump for myself and the horse. I was trying to frame a reply and choking on it when I realized he was not speaking to me, but past me. Father had come up behind me and was leaning against the gate to the corral. Use all the water you want, stranger. Father and I watched him dismount in a single flowing tilt of his body and lead the horse over to the trough. He pumped it almost full and let the horse sink his nose in the cool water before he picked up the dipper for himself. He took off his hat and slapped the dust out of it and hung it on the corner of the trough. With his hands, he brushed the dust from his clothes. With a piece of rag pulled from his saddle roll, he carefully wiped his boots. He untied the handkerchief from around his neck and rolled his sleeves and dipped his arms in the trough, rubbing thoroughly and slashing water all over his face. He shook his hands dry and used the handkerchief to remove the last drops from his face. Taking a comb from his shirt pocket, he smoothed back his long dark hair. All his movements were deft and sure. With a quick precision, he flipped down his sleeves, reknotted the handkerchief, and picked up his hat. Then, holding it in his hand, he spun about and strode directly toward the house. He bent low and snapped the stem of one of Mother's petunias and tucked it into his hatband. In another moment, the hat was on his head, brim swept down in swift, unconscious gesture, and he was swinging gracefully into the saddle and starting toward the road. I was fascinated. None of the men I knew were proud like that about their appearance. In that short time, the kind of magnificence I had noticed had emerged into plainer view. It was in the very air of him. Everything about him showed the efforts of long use and hard use, but showed too the strength and quality and competence. There was no chill on me now. Already I was imagining myself in hat and belt and boots like those. He stopped the horse and looked down at us. He was refreshed, and I would have sworn the tiny wrinkle around his eyes that were with him would be a smile. His eyes were not restless when he looked at you like this. They were still and steady, and you knew the man's whole attention was concentrated on you in the casual glance. Thank you, he said in his gentle voice, and was turning into the road back to us before Father spoke in his slow, deliberate way. Don't be in such a hurry, stranger. I had to hold tight to the rail or I would have fallen backwards into the corral. At the first sound of Father's voice, the man and the horse, like a single being, had wheeled to face us, the man's eyes boring at Father, bright and deep in the shadow of the hat's brim. I was shivering, struck through once more. Something intangible and cold and terrifying was there in the air between us. I stared in wonder as Father and the stranger looked at each other a long moment, measuring each other in an unspoken fraternity of adult knowledge beyond my reach. Then the warm sunlight was flooding over us, for Father was smiling, and he was speaking with a drawling emphasis that meant he had made up his mind. I said, don't be in such a hurry, stranger. Food will be on the table soon, and you can bed down here tonight. The stranger nodded quietly, as if he too had made up his mind. That's mighty thoughtful of you, he said, and swung down and came toward us, leading his horse. Father slipped into step beside him, and we all headed for the barn. My name's Starrett, said Father. Joe Starrett. This here, waving at me, is Robert McPherson Starrett. Too much name for a boy. I'll make it Bob. The stranger nodded again. Call me Shane, he said. Then to me, Bob it is. You were watching me for quite a spell coming up the road. It was not a question, it was a simple statement. Yes, I stammered. Yes, I was. Right, he said. I like that. A man who watches what's going on around him will make his mark. Question number 1. What's the meaning of the word precision as it's used in paragraph 6? A, correctness. B, clumsiness. C, mistake. D, selfish. Number 2. Which is the best summary of the passage? A, the father of the ranch invites a stranger passing by named Shane to share dinner and stay the night at their home. The narrator notices the boy watching him and makes a nice comment to the boy. B, a stranger has pulled up to the family's ranch and decides to stay the night with the family. The family doesn't say much to the family, but works with deep care. C, the narrator noticed that the stranger passing through took great care of his appearance. That was not something that he had seen before and thought it very fascinating. D, stranger is coming through town as the narrator, a young boy, watches carefully. The stranger took careful consideration of his own appearance, and the narrator is impressed with the man. The man is invited to dinner and takes notice of the young boy's attentiveness. Writing prompt. You have just read a passage from the Western novel Shane, written from the viewpoint of a young boy, Bob. Write a narrative that retells the events of the story from Shane's point of view. Be sure to use what you have learned about the setting, characters, and plot of the passage. Manage your time carefully so that you can plan your narrative and do some pre-writing using your scratch paper, and write your narrative in the response box in Edge Elastic. Your written response should be in the form of a multi-paragraph narrative. Write your story on the line pages of the answer document.